Leopard and Gooden beside them. And on the far side, on pole position, Shivers and Halliday. Ready for a start now. Look for the sprint up to the first corner. Away in the first sidecar race of the day. Leopard and Gooden it is. First into the first corner. Shivers and Halliday back to third place behind Vent and Dolph. The Americans going round the outside of them. Shivers and Halliday up to second. Challenging Leopard and Gooden for first. And into first place. Shivers and Halliday, Leopard and Gooden, Vent and Dolph, and then Lyndon Hart. There's Lyndon Hart up into second place now. The American crew chasing Shivers and Halliday. Have a look as they come around on the first lap. When they get back to the start-finish line again, just see how much Shivers and Halliday have managed to pull out. Into the front straight. This time down past the start-finish line. So just have a look. Lyndon Hart seemed to have some grunt in a straight line. Vent and Dolph in third, Leopard and Gooden fourth. Oh, beautifully done round that corner, Shivers and Halliday. That's Vent and Dolph, Leopard and Gooden. Just superb the way they enter corners and the way they get the power on the ground coming out of them. We've been talking a lot about Shivers and Halliday. Doug Shivers and Margaret Halliday from Australia. They are intending to go to Europe next year. I was talking to Margaret in the pits a little earlier on, and she said that they're going to go over in about June. They've got to start at Silverstone and are hoping to pick up some more starts from there. Of course, sidecar racing in Grand Prix form in Europe is 500cc nowadays, not the 750 that they're running in there now. And they know that they have a lot to learn, but they're hoping they'll be able to pick up enough when they go over there the first time to get contracts to stay. So those people who have been writing in and telephoning us asking about Shivers and Halliday, that's what they intend to do in the future, the immediate future anyway, is finish this series on a winning note, go back to Australia, get themselves together, and then they're off to Europe. And I think with the teamwork they've got, Graham Crosby, they'll probably go well in Europe.
Oh, they're a very experienced crew, and I'm sure that if they do get a start in the British Grand Prix, that's going to be the first of many, many starts in Europe. You just have to get established over there. Once you do get established, then the organisers tend to come to you instead of you having to go to them.
That's Vent and Dolph still in third place.
Really getting it sideways there, exiting that corner. I think the good part about this circuit with the protection is they've got the hay bales right up against the curb, so you have to actually penetrate the hay bales before you can actually get to the curbs.
Lyndon Hart getting a little wide on that corner.
Well, using all the track, it's all there. It's designed to use all the track, so you may as well.
This is Lyndon and Hart.
He looks as if his outfit looks as if it's set up really nice. It doesn't seem to be jumping around the circuit like some of the other type of outfits.
Yes, they've come here from America and initially seemed to be a bit off the pace at Manfield, but as the series has continued, they've got quicker and quicker. That's the race order after lap 3. Shivers and Halliday, Lyndon Hart, and then Vent and Dolph. Going back to fourth place, that's Leopard and Gooden, and then Storky Holmes and Jeff Rowe from Australia. Shivers and Halliday just consolidating their lead. They are unbeaten since they came here, unbeaten in the series.
They're experiencing some brake troubles, Tony, with this circuit being the high speed and the virtually a stop corners that you've got to go through. The venting for the front brakes is quite important, and there has been a few overheating problems. I think they've got them all sorted out.
But their experience really shows when you see them like at Wanganui. Immediately before the race, they're there changing an engine. It didn't even look as if they'd had time to get all the bolts in to put it back together, and yet straight out on the grid, straight into first position and unchallenged.
Well, they are an experienced crew, and I think if you have a look at some of these sidecar guys, you can tell the experienced ones. You know, Doug Shivers, Margaret Halliday. they look like a combination, a perfect combination. They just flow through the corners. They don't look awkward at all.
If we get a chance on the next lap, or have a look at it this time, the end of the front straight into that corner. Shivers and Halliday just look so smooth. They're getting into the corners so quickly. Margaret Halliday hung way out on the side there. And that's the gap now. Shivers and Halliday going through. And the gap you could see way, way back the length of that straight. Shivers and Halliday still leading from Lind and Hart, then Ventendolf third. Leopard and Gooden in fourth place. Not going all their way today. Perhaps would have expected them to be in front of Ventendolf. It didn't take Ventendolf too long to get past them from the start line. Leopard and Gooden, of course, led to the first corner. That's Shivers and Halliday. Another win to add to their already impressive total. That's 7 wins from 7 starts for this amazing Australian pair. The Americans, Lind and Hart second. Waiting for third place now, Vent and Dolph, that's them across the line. And Leopard and Gooden in fourth place.
Boring.
Well, he could make it interesting, couldn't he?
Well, that's true, but he reckons the best circuit around is Wanganui. This circuit, he says, is only about 4 or 5 corners. Totally boring.
We don't know at all how quickly Shinji Yatsushiro will be able to go, or the other of the Japanese, Hirako Miyagi. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I spoke to both of those two guys before, and they said no, thank you. I don't like street circuit.
Interesting, actually. I can't talk to them, unfortunately. Graham Crosby understands a little Japanese and can have a conversation, but it all sounds like double Dutch to me, and I'm afraid I cannot pick up any information from them at all, other than sign language. Anyway, let's look at the top of the field, the leading competitors in Formula One. Overall series leader and the winner of 3 Wanganui F1 races midweek, Robert Holden. After experience in the States and Canada, he's in excellent form this season, and the bike is the ex-Dave Hiscock, Steve Roberts framed Suzuki 1100 Superbike. As top local, he carries number 1. He is unbeaten so far. Hikaru Miyagi is one of 2 Japanese here for the series, riding Motowaki Works machines. He'll ride under letter H on the Honda-based Motowaki 750. Miyagi's teammate is Shinji Yatsushiro, letter Y. This is also a Honda 750-based Motowaki F1 bike built to international F1 specs. And look out for him as the series finishes today. He's improving fast. Letter I is Englishman Paul Eden. His machine should be very competitive on this Gracefield circuit. It's a true Grand Prix bike, a Suzuki RGB 500 2-stroke 4. Letter K is West German Hans Klingerbiel, riding another RGB Suzuki Grand Prix bike. He was off the pace on Wednesday, but the times are getting quicker as he adjusts to these street circuits. Another Paul Eden, then Graham Crosby, Norris Farrow, Rob Dean and Hikaru Miyagi. But none of them really with a chance of catching Robert Holden, provided Robert Holden stays upright. There's Paul Eden pulling a big wheelie. The other person that we should look at today in terms of being competitive with Robert Holden is Roger Freeth. Now, Roger Freeth is the only rider, really, who has been able to stay anywhere close to Robert Holden on the previous circuits. With the pressure off Robert Holden, or the incentive gone to win, Roger Freeth is second and would like to be as close as possible to Robert Holden in a points finish. And he has the horsepower. Robert Holden getting a relatively slow start. Norris Farrow through first, Roger Freeth and Paul Eden. That's the order they went into the first corner. See if it changes. That's Norris Farrow still in the lead. Roger Freeth behind him. Norris Farrow on the Steve Roberts framed Suzuki, and Roger Freeth on the Macintosh framed one behind him. Robert Holden's up to third place already. Robbie Dean there in fourth place, then Paul Eden. How long can Norris Farrow hold on to this lead? I'm sure Roger Freeth will challenge him for it very shortly. And Robert Holden will be looking to get past both of them. Into the front straight now for the first time. have a look at the straight line speed of these bikes. Roger Freeth tells us that his is doing about 165 miles an hour in a straight line. Roger Freeth in front of Norris Farrow. Roger Freeth, Norris Farrow, Robert Holden, Robbie Dean. As the front three start to pull away, it'll be intriguing to see if Paul Hidden on the GP bike can come with them. Roger Freeth. Robert Holden to second. Norris Farrow third now. Well, we'll have a little wager, Graham Crosby. Which part of the circuit do you think Robert Holden's going to get past on?
Knowing Robert, he'll do it the easiest. As I guess in a straight line, that's the most easiest place to pass anybody. But generally, he's the sort of person that would slip up the inside and somebody under brakes.
He hasn't done it yet. Roger Freeth still holding off Robert Holden, but there's a long way to go on the third lap of 15. Me leading you astray. 10 laps for the Formula One races. Robert Holden up the inside, he's done it. Robert Holden, Roger Freeth, Norris Farrow. And we've had somebody off. Yellow flag's out. They shouldn't change position. Wow, that is dangerous. I think they will have to stop the race. It's Bob McCleary is one of them. There's another bike down there. That's Bob McCleary, who's up and okay by the looks. His bike parked there, number 5. Yeah, that's Bob McCleary from Christchurch, of the famous McCleary family. And he came down at Wanganui in a crash when Shinji Yatsushiro ran into the back of him. That one looks like a multi-bike crash. We're trying to see who's the other. It's Eddie Kattenberg's, I think.
Looks like a 1100 Suzuki.
I think it is Eddie Kattenberg's, just looking at the colour. I can't see the number at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like it could have been 21.
Yes, it is. I can see the shaven head of Eddie Kattenberg there. He seems to be okay. Obviously, he's going to be a little sore, but at least he's conscious. See as they get this bike out. Yes, it is Eddie Kattenberg's GSX 1100 Suzuki. So we're going to need a restart, presumably with 8 laps, maybe. There with Robert Holden. Norris Farrow. Robert Holden in second, so a better start than he had in the initial start. 8 laps left. Farrow, Holden, in Freeth. Roger Freeth didn't get as good a start as he had the first time. Robert Holden in front, Norris Farrow second. Freeth third now, in fourth. And Glenn Williams was up there in 5th place. Now, he thought that he could finish in 5th or 6th place on the production bike today, and that would make it worth his while bringing it here. Norris Farrow into the corner. Robert Holden already pulling out a lead. Freeth third. Robbie Dean up there with Glenn Williams. The two of them on production bikes having a good race.
That should be a good dice, Tony. These two guys, when they get together, are incredible. Every which way but loose.
Freeth in front of Farrow. So Robert Holden, Roger Freeth, Norris Farrow. The Macintosh frame Suzuki splitting up the two Steve Roberts frame Suzuki. Robert Holden doing it very, very comfortably, but starting to pull away as sure as anything. Roger Freeth behind him. Norris Farrow still third. Let's look back at the gap between third and fourth. Paul in fourth place now. Glenn Williams right behind him. Robbie Dean in 7th. So that's first and second. Robert Holden and Roger Freeth. Norris Farrow just coming into your picture. That's Farrow third. Robert Holden still leading from Roger Freeth. Roger Freeth really starting to pull up on him now. Initially, Robert Holden got away because Roger Freeth didn't get a good start. But Roger Freeth starting to catch him now.
Roger is extremely good under brakes, Tony. You can see most of the ground he makes up is under brakes.
Paul Idden fourth, Glenn Williams behind him. Roger Freeth in front of Robert Holden at the end of the straight. Norris Farrow still third. Paul Idden fourth, Glenn Williams fifth. Norris Farrow not getting into that corner anywhere near as quickly as Robert Holden or Roger Freeth. Now, in terms of points, Robert Holden can afford to sit behind Roger Freeth all day if necessary. It would only be his pride as a racer that would put him in front of Roger Freeth. He certainly doesn't need to beat him. If he can stay second, he's still going to win handsomely on points. So Roger Freeth away in the lead now. Robert Holden. Norris Farrow still third. Robert Holden slowing just a little, I think.
Well, the rumour was that going around the pit area that Robert had problems with his clutch, but I spoke to him and he assured me that the clutch has been totally overhauled, which means basically pulling it all apart and putting new springs and so forth in there. So I don't think there's a problem with the clutch.
Well, Roger Freeth is certainly going very, very well indeed. This more wide-open circuit suits his Macintosh frame Suzuki a little better. Despite the 998 up there, believe me, it's 1135. Entered as a 1000cc bike, as they all were, not wanting to give anything away to the others, but they're all 1135, the front three. So Roger Freeth having an excellent day. He's had a little bit of bad luck in the series. He's second overall on points. Now Norris Farrow is in front of Robert Holden. Robert Holden has a problem. He has slowed down considerably. Looking down at the bike now, I suspected by the way he was slowing so quickly that there was some kind of problem. Paul Idden passed him now in third place. Glenn Williams fourth.
I would say Robert will be pulling out very shortly. He may try and run the race to get enough points because he only needs to finish about fifth, I believe, to secure the system, to secure the series. However, we've got a couple of laps to go, and whether his bike he's going to try and run it to the ground, I don't know.
Difficult to know if it's a problem that can be fixed before the second and third legs of the race.
Could be running on two cylinders.
This it's Lothar Spiegler going past him now. Shinji Yatsushiro approaching him to go past. Robert Holden's going to continue to circulate to the end of the race by the look of it. Meanwhile, it is Roger Freeth, the race leader, by a good margin now from Norris Farrow. Well, it's a good change of luck for Roger Freeth. We really must say that he is a trier, Roger Freeth. He never gives up. Even when his own bike was US at Manfield, he borrowed one of his old bikes that he'd sold to somebody else and leased it back for the race just to finish in the points. And then at Wanganui, he went from 5th place on points up to 2nd. He is still second behind Robert Holden, and this won't do his chances any harm at all because Robert Holden looks like finishing down the line. The wider circuit suiting Roger Freeth. He was in good spirits this morning, in very good humour.
There's Norris Farrow coming out onto the main straight, followed closely by Paul Idden and Glenn Williams.
This
involved
is
in
intriguing,
the dice there.
What an amazing contrast. That's the checkered flag for Roger Freeth. Norris Farrow second, Paul Idden third, Glenn Williams fourth. Now that's an interesting contrast. The two bikes in your picture, Paul Idden on the Grand Prix bike and Glenn Williams on the production bike, the Bike Clinic GPZ 900. That's an amazing finish, 4th place. At Wanganui, he had 3 thirds on a production bike, which was much more explainable or understandable because the circuit is so short. But to come out today on a production bike at Gracefield and finish 4th, that's a superb performance. and an indication of the sheer ability of Clem Williams on a big production bike. So they'll wait here at the pleasure of the officials until everybody has stopped circulating, and then they can make their way back to the pits. Third place, Paul Eden on the Suzuki RGB Grand Prix bike.
Why do you reckon things have gone right today, Roger?
Well, I'm not quite sure exactly what's gone wrong with Robert. I know he's having troubles with his clutch after Wanganui. Apparently they've only got one clutch hub that will fit into their crankshaft gear, so maybe they've blown that clutch, in which case they have to change an engine. So I don't really know. I like this track. It was a bit dicey the first few laps because the fire truck had put some water down on a couple of corners when it went out to attend the accident. So I took it pretty easy for a couple of laps, but obviously Robert was having his problems.
But obviously you had no problems today. Things went right with your bike this time.
Yeah, well, it seems to be going well at the moment. I just can't keep the front wheel on the ground. That's the only problem.
It's developing that much power now, is it?
Well, again, our suspension system is set up again for high-speed circuits, and we can't set it very soft in the rear and make it handle on high-speed corners as well. So you tend to make up more ground on high-speed corners, so I've got it set up for those. And when I accelerate out of corners, the suspension's quite stiff and it won't sink and absorb the power, so the front wheel just lifts coming out of the turns.
Sounds pretty thrilling. Well, what do you reckon? Are you making any predictions for the rest of the day? Do you think you'll be able to stay in front of Holden?
Well, I was confident when I came here that I'd be able to give Robert a much better go than I did at Wanganui, for instance. I just hope he gets his bike back together and we can put on a good race.
Roger Freeth hoping for a good race in the where he crashed in the earlier race, remember?
He's a bit more tenement going around there that time, Tony. His bike is going extremely fast, and I would think that the race is going to be between him, Bob Toomey and Paul Pav.
The way Paul Pavlitic was riding at Wanganui, it's hard to see him getting beaten on anything. Bike number 4. But of course, this circuit is not the same and won't suit the same bikes quite as well. Bob Lewis, Bob Toomey, Robert Holden up there as well. Two Wellington Motorcycles riders, Bob Toomey and Robert Holden, in similar leathers. One's number 6 and the other number 1. 38's in there is Brian Hall on the Yamaha RZ350. Rod Lewis still leading. Robert Holden, Bob Toomey, nothing in it. 38, Brian Hall. Still Rod Lewis. This is the corner again. Through it and away. Rob Lewis, Bob Toomey second now. And Brian Hall. That's good racing out front. Rob Lewis holding on. A rider, as we told you a little earlier, we hadn't heard a lot of before this series, but he says this is the first time he's had a competitive bike, and he has certainly made a few people sit up and take notice. Young rider from Christchurch, Rob Lewis, on the Yamaha XJ600, going superbly. Bob Toomey in front now. Robert Holden back to the fourth. Toomey, Rob Lewis, Brian Hall. Paul Pavlitic back in 5th place. Aaron Slight is 111. Alan Delatour up there. Very, very close, nothing in it. Toomey leads to the next corner. Bob Toomey, Rob Lewis, Brian Hall, and Robert Holden. Bob Toomey and Robert Holden on the same bikes. Seems like a GSX 550 is pretty quick around this Gracefield circuit. Mind you, the Wellington Motorcycles crew are not far from home, are they?
That's true, Tony. Every time the Wellington Motorcycles guys get their act together, they do it in good form. You know, all the bikes are prepared really, really well. And I guess under Steve, these guys really get the good advantage of his knowledge anyway.
At the moment, they're being split by Rob Lewis from Christchurch on the Yamaha. That's Bob Toomey first. Rob Lewis second. Robert Holden challenging him, trying to go round the outside. Nice riding, Robert Holden. Couldn't quite do it. Rob Lewis still between Bob Toomey and Robert Holden. 38's Brian Hall, 111 is Aaron Slight. Coming round to lap some back markers now. Bob Toomey still hanging out. Robert Holden second, so the Wellington Motorcycles team in first and second places. Rob Lewis in third.
Number 38 there, I don't have him on the program, but he's got something, something coming out the back of his bike, whether it's a tyre that's shifted across and rubbing on a swing arm or something. Oh, it's an oil leak. Right-hand side could possibly just be a seal, or...
He's looking down to see what it is now, but he's not slowing down to look. Toomey still leading Robert Holden. Rob Lewis second. Brian Hall. Then Aaron Slight. Paul Pavletich being pushed back just a little. He's in sixth place behind Aaron Slight. 38, remember, is Brian Hall. Yes, he has quite a problem with that bike. We hope it's not leaving oil on his rear wheel.
Well, I hope he's aware of that fact, Tony, because there is a left-hander over the railway lines where Eddie Kattenberg crashed earlier. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen there.
Bob Toomey, Robert Holden, Rob Lewis. Here's Bob Toomey, Robert Holden right behind him. 38 is Brian Hall. Now he has got a problem with oil coming out. I think there is a little oil coming out of there.
I don't think there's a little, Tony. I think there's quite a lot, but it's dripping on the exhaust system, which does make it look as if it's possibly a lot worse than it really is.
Notice the way he lost his foot off the foot peg there, out of the corner. It's obviously a bit slippery down there. Hope it's not getting onto his rear tyre though, because that can be dreadful.
Well, it would be. I'm sure it'd be doing that. But what would you do in a situation like this, where you've got, you know, you're running fourth? You're keen, you're going for it. I don't know what I'd be doing.
He's certainly not giving anything away by it, is he? Bob Toomey still leading Robert Holden first and second. And Brian Hall just hanging in there in third place. And he's keeping Rob Lewis out of it. I don't know if I'd like to be following him, actually.
Well, we don't have to worry about that now, Tony, because he's taken the right decision and he's going to pull out.
He's hopped out. So Rob Lewis up in third place. A man of the future in production racing, if he sticks with it, obviously has some talent. The front two we know well about. Bob Toomey and Robert Holden, both well-known names in production or any other kind of racing in New Zealand. Both have impressive records. But Rob Lewis, something of a newcomer. So the Wellington Motorcycles team now riding as a team, starting to clear away just a little. Bob Toomey, the points leader, in front of Robert Holden, who's fourth on points. Bob Toomey on the recovery road most of this year after a nasty crash that he had on a big bike. He injured his leg quite badly, but he's back to racing form and obviously in good form. Robert Holden can't get past him. White flag this time round on the last lap in the junior production race. Bob Toomey leading Robert Holden. Rob Lewis, we expect, will still be third, but these two have started to clear away just a little. And perhaps there's a little bit of team riding in there because they're both from Wellington Motorcycles, but Bob Toomey has the points lead of the series. And Robert Holden, I think, would have to stick his neck out to get Bob Toomey or to get past him in current form. And probably better to leave the points the way they are. Wellington Motorcycles looking pretty good.
Definitely going to be a sprint to the line, Tony.
Coming around this time. Into the start, finish straight. But it comes down to a sprint down to the line.
If it was me, I'd rather be in Robert Holden's place than Bob Toomey in this situation, because you can draft down here, providing you get out of that corner and in the slipstream quick enough.
I don't think Robert Holden's going to do it this time. Coming down to meet the checkered flag, it's Bob Toomey, Robert Holden, and Rob Lewis third. An excellent race for Bob Toomey. That continues his points lead. He has an even bigger points lead now. Robert Holden staying in fourth, we suspect, or perhaps up to third place. Rob Lewis from Christchurch is third. Junior Production Series, the first race. Bob Toomey from Wellington on the GSX 550. Robert Holden on a bike that is similar, almost exactly the same. And Rob Lewis from Christchurch on the Yamaha XJ 600. Really quite impressively fast, Graham Crosby, these GSX 550s, aren't they?
Placing there wasn't easy, that's for sure.
No, not with Robert here breathing down your neck. How much was it, were team instructions coming into that?
There's no team instructions here. It's all go for it as hard as you can.
Every man for himself?
Every man for himself, and do the best you can.
Bob, you're on the comeback trail in many ways. When will we see you on one of the big Formula One bikes again?
Well, I'm hoping to get on bigger bikes next year. I'm not quite sure whether I'd like to prefer Formula One or Formula 2. That's just one of the things we have to find out, see if we can get some money together and see what we can do.
What is the relative differences to a rider like you, advantages of running Formula 2 as opposed to Formula 1?
Well, Formula 2, there appears to be a greater range of bikes that can be used. You've got the modified production bikes and the pure racing bikes. Formula 1's a similar system, but the Formula 1 bikes appear to be better than the RG Suzuki's around the circuits like we've got here. The Formula 2 is obviously cheaper to run, and the expense of the Formula 1 would probably rule it out for me.
Well, Bob, thanks very much. And turning now to Robert Holden, who we saw in the Formula 1 race, but having a few problems. Robert, what we want to know from you is, are you going to be out later in the day? Do you think that big bike of yours can be fixed?
We can't fix the one we've got. Seems to have a gearbox problem. I think I've lost quite a few teeth on all the gears. I'm going to use someone else's bike for the last 2 rounds. I don't know how competitive it will be, but I think we should be up there anyhow. The bike is a fairly good one. It's the one that Kevin Maxwell's using at the moment, which is the aluminium frame version of the one I've got. Hopefully it'll just keep going and we can accumulate some more points and still win the championship.
Have you ever ridden the bike before, Robert?
No, never. I've done about 3 laps around Manford on it one day when we're trying to sort it out, but that's all I've done on it. I haven't ridden apart from that.
So you're going to have to adapt yourself to it during the race. That's going to be pretty tough, isn't it?
No, I know the bike handles well. I know it does everything right, so I don't think it'll be too much of a problem, I hope.
Robert, thanks.
Okay.
Robbie Dean holding off Glenn Williams. Delatour still third. Robbie Dean on the GSX 1100 Suzuki, holding off Glenn Williams on the GPZ 900 Kawasaki. It should be a good race between these two. In the Formula 1 race, both were on the same bikes, and Glenn Williams got in front of Robbie Dean. Both very, very clever street races, both good production races. Now, Robbie Dean's bike may possibly, we wouldn't want to suggest anything nasty here, but may possibly have had the odd modification.
I shouldn't think so, Tony. Most of these guys, when they buy these bikes, especially Robbie, he just pulls one out of the shop, and he's got a shop in Tauranga and just probably decides, right, let's go racing. Grabs the keys off the board, selects the bike, and away we go.
What we should say, of course, is that we are not for a moment suggesting that any of the riders in any of these classes are cheating. There are little things that you can do, little tweaks here and there that make them slightly different. But basically, production bikes. Glenn Williams really with a race on his hands now to catch Robbie Dean. These two starting to pull away just a little from Alan Delatour in third place, and he again is putting a gap from fourth.
Robbie Dean would have to be the most remarkable rider. He just comes out onto the racetrack after probably 6 or 7 months of non-riding, just leaps onto it and away he goes.
Glenn Williams in front, dives down the inside into that corner, straight sprint down, start finish straight now. GP GPZ 900. Is it faster than a GSX 1100? Certainly holds its own. Glenn Williams in the lead. Robbie Dean second. Alan Delatour third. Delatour catching just a little in that third place. This group disappearing.
Well, sometimes when you get a battle first and second, they do tend to slow down because they're obviously not able to take the right lines that they want to. And you can draw in that third man. Once you do bring in somebody like Alan Delatour, you know, the end of the race is something, well, I don't know who's going to win.
Glenn Williams from Robbie Dean from Alan Delatour. Perhaps it's timely that we should comment about Alan Delatour's bike. This Honda VF1000 really has amazed me in its reliability in the Castrol 6 hour and its sheer competitiveness even in sprint races. Very, very fast bike.
Also very, very expensive too. This is probably why the field isn't so large as opposed to the Formula 2. You know, you're talking upwards of $9,000–10,000 for some of these bikes.
Yes, the new price of the GPZ 900 before the sales tax change recently was around $11,000. It's a lot of money for a motorbike, but it's a heck of a motorbike for the money too.
Well, I had a guy come into my shop and he was complaining he wasn't really too worried about the $400 a month payments. He couldn't afford to keep putting tyres on it.
Glenn Williams on the GPZ 900 from Robbie Dean. Alan Delatour in third. No change in the position, no change in the gaps between them. Alan Delatour, if anything, though, just beginning to close on Robbie Dean. All very experienced production racers. Glenn Williams, perhaps New Zealand's top expert in production racing at the moment, is going back to South Africa where he has been for the last year. He goes back next Friday. He and Dave Hiscock both racing over there. Glenn Williams last year in South Africa missed the first 3 races of the series, but still finished with an excellent points total. And says this year he'll be there for the start of the series and hopefully be able to win the title. Robbie Dean and Alan Delatour are having a bit of a race. Glenn Williams benefiting from it and pulling out a lead just a little more. Down the straight this time, Glenn Williams, Robbie Dean, Alan Delatour. These three a country mile ahead of the rest of the field. If Eddie Kattenberg was still in there, if he had not crashed, he probably would be up with them as well. Another of the upcoming stars in senior production racing in New Zealand. Meanwhile, these three are certainly the most competitive with the most competitive machinery. Number 45 there is Dennis Newton on GPZ Kawasaki. Here's our race leader, Glenn Williams. Alan Delatour still having that battle with Robbie Dean. The white flag's out. If Alan Delatour is going to get past Robbie Dean, he's got to do it on this lap. Glenn Williams down to the end of the straight and into the left-hander. Robbie Dean just ahead of Alan Delatour. Well, it's the last lap now. It's do or die for Alan Delatour. Glenn Williams with a clear lead. And still the race goes on for second and third place, and Alan Delatour's in front of Robbie Dean. Robbie Dean going just a little wide. Down the front straight in just a moment when they get through the S section here. Robbie Dean just overdid it. He got a little wide on the corner, and Alan Delatour straight through. So Alan Delatour starting to pick up on Glenn Williams now, but there's not enough space left to do it, I don't think. Down the straight, Glenn Williams. Alan Delatour catching fast, sprinting down to the checkered flag. Glenn Williams on the GPZ. Alan Delatour on the Honda. Robbie Dean on the Suzuki. With an enormous lead, 106 to Bill Cooney's 53. Jeff McNaughton, because he didn't finish in that last race, is out of the points. Otherwise, he'd have been in second place. Dallas Rankin with 42, Neil Smith 37, Bruce Woodley 34, Rob Lewis 23, Michael Webb 20, John Meads 18, and Jim Stedman 16. Car coming down. A big sprint up to the line, won by Neil Smith. John Meads behind him. Neil Smith still hanging on. John Meads, he goes back to third place. Bill Cooney getting up there. Neil Smith a little bit of a wobble in the front. Smith, Meads, Rankin. And waiting for Brent Jones and Jeff McNaughton to come through the field. Not as fast off the line as the four strokes. There's Bill Cooney. Brent Jones and Jeff McNaughton back in about 7th or 8th place now, coming through. Jones coming through ahead of McNaughton. Neil Smith, John Meads, Bill Cooney, Dallas Rankin, Brent Jones. And McNaughton behind him. Now Jones straight up to 3rd place. McNaughton up to 6th. Starting to come through the field. McNaughton going past Dallas Rankin. Still Neil Smith, John Meads, Bill Cooney. That's the first 3.
Cooney's going to move up into second spot, hopefully along the front straight there with the excess power that he has available. However, Brent Jones is, yes, he's up through the inside.
Have a look as they get around to the start of the front straight. Neil Smith, John Meads has been overtaken by Brent Jones. Meads third now, and Bill Cooney. And in a straight line, we'll expect Bill Cooney to come through just a little. He should have the straight line speed. Oh, absolutely nothing between them as they come down to the line and into the corner first. Brent Jones. John Meads behind him, then Bill Cooney. So Jones and Cooney second now. Neil Smith third. Meads fourth. Where's Jeff McNaughton? Jeff McNaughton back in 5th place. Coming through just a little slower than Brent Jones got to the front. Jones, Cooney, Smith, McNaughton, and Meads. So McNaughton working his way up there. There's Jeff McNaughton. In 4th place behind Neil Smith. Brent Jones, Bill Cooney, Neil Smith, and then McNaughton. See if McNaughton can improve by another place by the end of the straight. Bill Cooney having a go at Brent Jones at the front. Neil Smith still in 3rd. McNaughton going around the outside of him, I think. Yes, he did. So McNaughton up to 3rd place. Only Bill Cooney separating the two TZ250L Yamahas. Brent Jones in the front, then Bill Cooney, then Jeff McNaughton.
Brent knows what sort of competition he's up against with Bill, because a year ago I gave Brent Jones a ride on that particular Formula 2 bike that Bill Cooney's got now, and he won at Manfield. So he's got a fair idea of the handling capabilities and so forth.
Brent Jones, Bill Cooney, Jeff McNaughton, Neil Smith, John Meads, Dallas Rankin, Rob Lewis. That's the order as they came through into the front straight. Not very much splits them up in Formula 2 racing. At the front of the field, it's always close. Jones, Cooney, McNaughton. McNaughton trying to get up on that front group to get close enough to challenge Cooney. He's going to get past Cooney before he can get to Jones. Brent Jones's bike doesn't look to handle any better than Jeff McNaughton's. In fact, it doesn't look to handle as well, but he gets around there quick.
Looks very skipperish. Yeah. He seems to hit bumps and bounce everywhere, but he seems to be able to hang on to it okay.
looks rather like it is a question of hanging on to it. You see it over bumps, and it does look, it just flickers about all over the place. Doesn't look anywhere near as stable as Jeff McNaughton's, but he's getting around cricket.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't matter how bad your bike is. If you're out front there leading, it can't be that bad.
Brent Jones, Bill Cooney, Jeff McNaughton, Neil Smith.
Bill made an interesting comment before about him being tired. It could be that he's showing here a sign of a little bit of tiredness already, Tony. He's a big guy, and he hasn't had the sort of race experience that Brent Jones has got, so it could be that he is getting tired.
As he said, it's a very tiring circuit to ride around. Quite fast for a street circuit. Here's the race leader, Brent Jones. Look at his gap to Bill Cooney. Jeff McNaughton starting to catch Cooney. But down the straight, Bill Cooney should have it over Jeff McNaughton. I saw Brent Jones have a quick look to see how close they were. Brent Jones into the corner. Back marker, Cooney, McNaughton. Bill Cooney, Jeff McNaughton. McNaughton, remember, likes this circuit, enjoys riding here. And the bike certainly looked competitive in the first race until he went out with the gear problem. Getting closer now to Bill Cooney. Having a go underneath him. We'll have a look as they come round to the start of the front and finish straight.
Remembering also, Tony, there's only a couple of points that separate these two.
Yes, that's the point, is that Jeff McNaughton really needs to beat Cooney because of his DNF in the last race. Cooney has taken over the points lead from him. That is the points in second place. Brent Jones is almost unchallengeable in first place with the points overall. So really, Jeff McNaughton needs to be beating Bill Cooney.
That Kawasaki is far, far faster than the Yamaha, and I think Jeff McNaughton's really got his work out, or his work cut out for him, not only to get up beside him, to actually pass him and stay in front, because it's always that big run to the finish line that you have to worry about.
It's always a feature here on this Gracefield circuit, is the sprint down the front, finish straight. And there's quite a long little straight there, so that sprint it turns out to be. And if your bike has more horsepower in a straight line, provided you exit the corner the right way, you can catch up and beat somebody before the start-finish line. But Jeff McNaughton's not really making any impression on Cooney at all. Here's Brent Jones, 46, the race leader. Cooney behind him, and then Jeff McNaughton. Jeff McNaughton just signalling to the pits that he was getting their message. I don't imagine he needs to be told too much other than how far ahead of him Brent Jones is. While Brent Jones, in excellent form and race fit, certainly seems to be getting to grips with this circuit very, very quickly indeed. He hasn't raced here before. Bear in mind, Jeff McNaughton has. But it doesn't take Brent Jones long to learn a circuit. What a superb rider he has been this season. Jones coming down and get the white flag this time. Bill Cooney still behind him, and McNaughton still third. On the last lap now, and I don't really think that Jeff McNaughton is going to get anywhere close enough to that bike. And Jones getting through some of the traffic very, very easily. Bill Cooney, he knows, is still there, not close enough to challenge at this stage, but enough to keep him honest. He can't afford to slacken off Brent Jones on the last lap. Bill Cooney going very, very well indeed. It's Brent Jones.
You see the little white things on his kneecaps are actually Teflon buttons, so if he does go around a corner and touch it on the ground, it won't hurt his kneecaps.
Yes, we might get a closer look at those in the pits a little later on. Brent Jones down to the line, Bill Cooney second, and looking back for third place is still Jeff McNaughton. Letter M across the line now in third place. Getting the first line to the first corner, Wenton Dolph in third place. The Americans Lyndon Hart pushing their way through. Sleppert and Gooden, Shivers and Halliday. Shivers and Halliday having a look this time. Wenton Dolph still third, the Americans fourth. Well, it doesn't take them long to get in front. Shivers and Halliday give them half a lap and they're gone. Amazing, they don't need to lead into the first corner. Wanganui, we saw one race where they went to the first corner in fourth place, and within about another 200 yards, 2 corners, they were back in first. Doug Shivers and Margaret Halliday, Leppard and Gooden behind them, Wenton Dolph and the Americans Lyndon Hart, then Storky Holmes and Jeff Rowe, and then 31, which is Warwick Snow and Vince Stewart.
They seem to get a terrific start, Tony. You know, they seem to be able to go right from the word go and just pick their way through with ease. Anybody that is unfortunate enough to be in front only stays there for a very short period.
Somebody off already. Just trying to pick who it is. Can't quite tell by the letters, so we have a look at the cart.
This will be the second incident on this particular corner. It's a corner that's got adverse, well, there's an adverse camber on it as you exit, and it's very, very easy to, especially on these sort of outfits, if you do lose control, they tend to turn right.
Shivers and Halliday, Leppard and Gooden in second place now. Lyndon Hart, the Americans, in third place, and Wenton Dolph in fourth. Gap that Shivers and Halliday have pulled out already from Leppard and Gooden. Lyndon Hart going to have a go at Leppard and Gooden. Wenton Dolph just dropping back slightly. Now this is where the dice is going to come. Leppard and Gooden from New Zealand, Lyndon Hart from the United States. Having a go this time, can't do it. They're having a look every time they can though, Lyndon Hart. They've got quicker as the series has gone on. Came here expecting a lot less opposition than they had. There's Wenton Dolph having a go. Oh, nicely done. Can they shut out the Americans? Not quite. Round the outside. Wenton Dolph up the inside. Leppard and Gooden going for it. This is the race for second place. Leppard and Gooden, number 88. The Americans, Lyndon Hart, number 1. Wenton Dolph just losing a little in a straight line. Not the same aerodynamic bits and pieces on the outside. This is the race for second. Lyndon Hart have it. They've done it. Lyndon Hart from America up into second place in front of Leppard and Gooden. It took them a little while to get the place to do it. Leppard and Gooden being kept honest by Wenton Dolph behind them. Go back then to letter 8, Storky Holmes and Jeff Rowe. And all of these trailing in the wake of the race leaders, Doug Shivers and Margaret Halliday. That's Lyndon Hart. Oh, an awful moment there for Lyndon Hart.
I think that was the same situation that Doug Shivers and Margaret Halliday got involved in. It's very difficult to judge the inside of the curve, because it's not painted white. They were complaining about it before, actually.
Let's have a look at it again. Bruce Lind driving, Jack Hart the passenger. Now Jack Hart, you'll see, bangs his knee quite horribly here. It must have hurt.
He's going to lift his knee up out of the way, but he's...
Well, that's where he came down on it.
How's that for hanging on?
I I think there'll be a little bit of leather missing off the knee patch on his suit of leathers. Jack Hart, they recovered very well. They didn't lose a place by it. Shivers and Halliday coming down this time to a white flag. So on the last lap, Lyndon Hart, despite that little mishap, managed to regain their place. Vent and Dolph have got in front of Leopard and Gooden. This time they're getting them right. Vent and Dolph doing very, very well in third place, in front of Leopard and Gooden. But no challenging Shivers and Halliday. On the last lap now, and looking for the checkered flag this time round. Shivers and Halliday have been in superb form. And this really is a formality, reeling off another one. This will be 8 out of 8 races. And I'm sure by the end of the day, they'll make it 9 out of 9. Doug Shivers and Margaret Halliday coming down the start-finish straight this time to take the checkered flag. Lyndon Hart being pushed a bit in second place. A bit of a dice on between Vent and Dolph and them. There's first place, Shivers and Halliday having backed off just a little. Second place, Lyndon Hart. Third place, Vent and Dolph. Fourth place, Leopard and Gooden. As is Norris Farrow. Norris Farrow, Robbie Dean, Roger Freeth. Ethel through the first corner. Norris Farrow leads out from Roger Freeth. Robbie Dean up there. Farrow, Freeth, Dean. Let's see what Robert Holden can do with this bike of Kevin Maxwell's. He's already up to 5th place behind Lothar Spiegler. He will know he can go round the outside of Spiegler probably. Norris Farrow from Roger Freeth, Robbie Dean, Lothar Spiegler, Robert Holden. Farrow still holding out Freeth. Roger Freeth would expect to take him over in this front straight, getting the front wheel off the ground. Lots of power to the ground, but Norris Farrow obviously still in good nick too. Will Roger Freeth get him under brakes? Down the inside. Roger Freeth, Norris Farrow. Robert Holden already up to 3rd place. There's an indication of how much rider ability makes a difference. Kevin Maxwell has been riding this bike right throughout the series and obviously doesn't have the same kind of experience as Robert Holden because the bike has on occasions been lapped. But there's Robert Holden straight out and up to 3rd place on a bike he hasn't ridden before, apart from a couple of test laps at Manfield last year.
He's certainly catching them too. He's got the bit between his teeth. I would suspect that another lap and he'd have Norris and then they'd be on with the chase to try and get Roger.
Well, they know that the bike handles. Doesn't look quite as stable as his own F1 bike, but it's going to be good enough to get him the points he needs. Up in 4th place there still is Lothar Spiegler from West Germany. We've seen very little of him in the series so far. He might have decided that he likes this street circuit and can go a little quick. It's an RGB Suzuki 500 Grand Prix bike. That's the best performance we've seen so far from Lothar Spiegler, and Clem Williams is behind him. Clem Williams on the production bike. Robert Holden not yet able to get past Norris Farrow, and that bike looking just slightly unstable if you pull a wheelie and put the front wheel back down again. Doesn't look quite as stable as Norris Farrow's bike. Meanwhile, Roger Freeth is able to pull a wee bit of a lead over the two. Robert Holden having a good race with Norris Farrow. There's Roger Freeth.
Norris Farrow's gone through, has been relegated back to 3rd position with Robert Holden. Just taking the advantage 2 corners prior to what we're seeing now.
This might end up being a good dice between Robert Holden and Norris Farrow. Norris, who has had all the bad luck in the world in the last couple of weeks, and Robert Holden on an unfamiliar bike. He won't want to push it too hard. He really only needs places like seconds and thirds to be comfortably cruising to a win in points at the end of the day. Roger Freeth realistically won't catch him as long as Robert Holden is still circulating. Lothar Spiegler starting to pick up just a little on that group. Perhaps he's got him in his sights. But Robert Holden doing remarkably well on an unfamiliar bike. Would suspect it's down on horsepower just slightly from his own bike as well.
Further back to the field, Tony, we've got a terrific dice here between Mr. Ridden,
Paul Ridden, Robbie Dean and Glenn Williams. Here's Paul Ridden, the Englishman on the RGB. Robbie Dean right behind him. Shinji Yakashiro behind him. Paul Ridden starting to get the RGB wound up just a little, but still back in 4th place. Yakashiro's back there and Glenn Williams back there as well. That's Robbie Dean behind him. The GSX 700. Lothar Spiegler, Paul Ridden, Robbie Dean, Yakashiro, and Ken Stedman on the Yamaha TZ 500 in front of Glenn Williams on the GPZ 900. But back with the race leaders, Roger Freeth is the race leader, number 2. Quite a ways ahead of these. There's Roger Freeth on the Ken McIntosh frame Suzuki 1100. Robert Holden in 2nd place, starting to pull just a slight gap now on Norris Farrow. Lothar Spiegler still 4th. It's Roger Freeth.
Is incredibly quick. The 4-speed gearbox. Just a nice big twin cylinder. A mobile air compressor, I call it.
Vincent motors of this kind have been used in all kinds of motorsport, cars as well as bikes. But in the old days, it was usually the frame and the brakes that were their handicap. They never had any shortage of horsepower, so you take it today with Huey Anderson's and you put the McIntosh frame and good brakes.
Well, there's Dave Martin trying to get some more speed out of Hugh Anderson's bike. Dave Martin on the Ducati 600.
Hugh Anderson was just waving him on there. I think Hugh Anderson is starting to feel the new blood again of being on a racing bike and competitive. He wants to race.
There's Dallas Rankin there. He's up on that 600cc Ducati too. These guys are all these machines, although they vary in size and capacity, they're all fairly well competitive.
Dave Martin is the man who co-rode with Alan Delatour in the Castrol 6000 thing. So he's no slug on a bike, very experienced, and on the Ducati, which is similar to Dallas Rankin's Ducati Panther 600.
This thing that Hugh Anderson's riding puts out a tremendous amount of horsepower, but a torque curve is incredible. You can just about take off in 4th gear. Fires every lamppost.
Dave Martin leading Hugh Anderson from Dallas Rankin in the Battle of the Twins. And to give you an indication of some of the machinery that's in here, there's a Ducati 750 Desmo, a Norton Commando 850, a Triton 1960 650, a Ducati 750, a Norton Atlas, an Indian 741, a Yoshimura Suzuki GSX 400, 2 Ducati Dama 900s, the Vincent, a Kawasaki 750, Ducati 900, and another couple of Ducatis, an SS 900, an SL 600. Keith Lovett on the Kawasaki 750.
Well, that's eligible. It's 4-stroke and it's twin cylinder.
A great mix of bikes, some of them more than 30 years old, some of them only a few years old. It's a amazing how much noise, or how different the noise is that these twins make compared to four-cylinder bikes and two-stroke bikes. The twin four-strokes. Number 69, there's Michael King on a Ducati Dama 900. Still Dave Martin leading Hugh Anderson from Dallas Rankin at the front of the field. The idea of this series was that the racing wouldn't be too serious, but it's an opportunity to race bikes that otherwise wouldn't be competitive in any class. It hasn't really worked out that way because the fellas at the front of the field are still out there racing. Number 3, there's Robert Nesbitt on the Norton Commando 850. Quite intriguing bikes. Number 11, John Stewart on the Ducati GT 750. Not so long ago, the Norton Commando 850s were the bike to have as a road bike. A little bit out of date now and a little bit overtaken by Japanese technology, but still a nice handling bike. A nice bike to ride for cruising. Hughie Anderson, number 84, back in front.
Still hanging on to a narrow lead. Dave Martin of the Ducati, followed by Dallas Rankin.
So at the moment, it's a Vincent leading 2 Ducatis. Have a look at Hugh Anderson and the way he rides this bike. He was describing to us a little earlier on that, in fact, in the days when everybody used to sit upright on top of the bike with knees tucked in, he was the first controversial rider who decided to use a knees out style. But of course, his knees out style is nothing like the way Roger Freeth and Glenn Williams and people like that ride today. You can see he does stick his knee out. One of the interesting things about watching the late Mike Hailwood race in his later years, after he'd given up for some time, was watching the comparison of style, and he was very much a tucked in on top of the bike, lean it all over. So Hugh Anderson was the front runner in the world of this knees out style, and he looks quite upright compared to some of the other fellas that are hopping their backsides right off the side of the bike.
On the 1000cc Vincent Rapide, Ken McIntosh Racing.
Interesting when he was telling us earlier on in the day too that around Wanganui he'd have been 5th or 6th on the grid in Formula 1 race with his bike.
Well, of course, remembering last year that he did actually ride the Vincent in that classic bike Battle of the Twins race. Very, very competitive. Dallas Rankin's having a little bit of trouble keeping a hold of second spot there. We've got Hugh Anderson, Dallas Rankin, Dave Martin's dropped back. They're doing lap times of 55.7 was the last lap time I got on Hugh Anderson. It's a tremendous effort.
Well, when you consider how competitive Dallas Rankin was in Formula 2, it gives you some idea how these elderly motorcycles are circulating. Hugh Anderson on the last lap now, leading from Dallas Rankin. The Vincent Rapide with the Ken McIntosh frame. I'll bet Hugh Anderson wishes that he had frames like that when he was racing for real.
That's true, Tony. What he was riding, well, he won his 125 World Championships there, riding Suzukis, and they were 3-cylinder and 2-cylinder 50cc. Sorry, 125 revving to something like 19,000 RPM.
Commonly known a little like the early Kawasaki's as flexi frames. Nothing like the same technology in suspension and frame design as we have nowadays. It's a great race. Hugh Anderson holding out Dallas Rankin. Rankin gets up on the inside.
It's going to be the drag to the line.
Coming down now to take the checkered flag. Dallas Rankin is going to hold off Hughie Anderson, try to get past him on the line. We'll call it a dead heat. results, as we said, don't matter too much in Battle of the Twins. It's more a fun class of racing than anything else and gives people on older bikes, twins, a chance to be competitive in a class of their own. Placed in New Zealand as well, Dave Martin, the co-rider with Alan Delatour in the Castrol 6 Hour, has pulled in third place today on a Ducati 6 lead for Robert Holden at 103, Roger Freeth 80, Norris Farrow 44, Paul Idden 42, Shinji Yatsushiro 41, Glenn Williams, Rob Dean, Lotta Spiegler, Graham Crosby, Ken Stedman. And interesting there that Glenn Williams and Rob Dean are both riding production bikes and have been in the F1 series. That's an amazing performance from both of them to be right up there in the point.
Yes, it certainly is disappointing. I mean, Robert's dominated the series right from the start, and as I said before, I would have liked to have beaten him fair and square. Our thing's really percolating around here. The suspension's working a lot better here, and you know, I think it would have been a lot closer.
It's rather ironic, isn't it, Roger, that the whole thing sort of come together for you at the very last meeting?
Well, I don't know about ironic, but it's happened before.
Do you think it'll happen again? Do you reckon you'll be able to get it right in the future?
Well, you know, motor racing is just one of those sports where anything can go wrong at any time, you know, and you can be as careful as you like, but you know, as I said earlier as well, you've just got to pick up a stone coming out of one of those corners. These slicks pick up stones, and we have open carbs, and if one of those goes down the throat of the carbs, then it bends valves and breaks pistons, and that's the end of you for the day.
You sound pretty gloomy about motor racing generally, but of course, not only do you race bikes in the summer, you compete in car rallies in the winter. What's the attraction of motorsport to a guy like you?
Well, obviously it's probably the excitement. Motor rallying is completely different from motorcycle racing. You certainly get a bit of excitement sitting alongside Neil Allport. I'd say in terms of drivers in this country, well, if he's not the best at the moment, he's certainly going to be the best in the next season. He's certainly the quickest at the moment.
But what's it to you, Roger? What do you really get out of it? Is it a sort of a buzz about being round fast machines?
Well, I suppose it is when you're riding, but the funny thing is when you win and you get back to the pits, I mean, all you're thinking of is trying to get out for the next race and making sure everything's right. You're certainly not really in a happy mood. You know, you don't even feel like celebrating. It's just a sense of urgency to get everything sorted, and you know, my pit crew are always saying that I'm complaining forever. Even when I win, I'm saying, well, you know, this is not right and this is not right. And the next day, I think you get a sense of satisfaction, especially if you've had a close, hard race and you've beaten somebody right on the line, something like that. That certainly gives a great sense of satisfaction.
Well, OK, let's look forward to the next race. Do you reckon Norris Farrow is going to be giving you a hard time there?
Well, Norris is very competitive. He's obviously out to win as well. His second place isn't that safe. Sorry, his third place. I'm safe in second. I can't be beaten for second, so I think Norris will probably be trying a bit harder than me in the next race, so it'll be close.
We'll go over and have a word with Norris and see just what the case is. Well, Norris, Roger's expecting you to be trying pretty hard in this next race. What do you reckon?
Well, there's a little bit more at stake now, Graham. Like, after the disastrous start to the whole series, I've managed to get myself up to third place. Paul Idden's only a couple of points behind me, so I've got to make sure that I finish, obviously, in front of Paul, but we'll just see how we go, you know.
You're pretty worried about him breathing down your neck there?
Well, like, third would be a nice finish to the disastrous season I've had, so it'll do me.
What's some of the problems you've had, Norris?
Well, the main problem is the engine. Like, I've blown 2 engines in the last 3 weeks, sort of thing. Been through 36 valves in 2 weeks. Those sort of things, you know, just niggly little problems that they're not horrendous engine blows, but they're ones that put you out. You know.
Is this a season you'd prefer to forget?
No, I don't think so. Like, we built this bike at the beginning of the season. I expected a few problems. Unfortunately, I didn't expect the engine problems, but no, like, it's all down to development, and next year, like, or next season, we'll know where to go. We'll be right.
Well, best of luck, Norris. Milkering race. Will that be the case?
Well, yeah, Norris has just informed me that I'm only 2 points behind him, which I didn't know until he just said so.
Is that going to make you go harder?
Well, it'll give me a little bit more incentive, yeah.
The season hasn't been all that good for you either, has it, Paul?
What, over here, or, yeah, no, we've had our ups and downs. We had a problem at Manfield with the crankshaft, which put me out to one race. and then I slid off at Wanganui in the second heat, which put me out of sort of scoring in another 2 races. So we're just trying to be consistent really in this one and try and get back in the top 3 again.
Has it been worthwhile coming down under for this series?
Oh yeah, it's been very worthwhile. It's been enjoyable. The racing's been close, and it's obviously going to do me. It's better for me to be riding than sat at England and making snowmen or something like that, or sledging.
Where to now, Paul?
I'm going down to the South Island for 2 weeks for a holiday, staying with my sister, shipping the bike out from Wellington on Monday, and then back to England beginning of February and get ready for the season in March.
We're going to see you back here?
Hopefully, yes. I'd like to come out to do the series again next year.
Paul, we look forward to seeing you, and thanks very much.
Being asked to push back just a little. They're having no false starts here, nobody creeping along the line. They're away in the last race of the Formula 1 series. Roger Freeth and Norris Farrow sprinting up to the first corner. Once again, it's Norris Farrow into it first. Roger Freeth second. No, sorry, Rob Dean in second. Roger Freeth third. Norris Farrow and Glenn Williams behind them. But this front group, Norris Farrow, Roger Freeth, Rob Dean, Paul Lydon, Lothar Spiegler, Glenn Williams. Norris's bike obviously handling very, very well indeed. It's got better as the day has gone on, and he is obviously getting some of his confidence back as well. He had some nasty get-offs and some horrific moments at Lanfield.
He's running a fairly standard type of engine, so he won't have any problems as far as reliability goes.
Robbie Dean up there, number 12 in 3rd place. He's did remarkably well in the early laps of every Formula 1 race. Paul Lydon still 4th, Lothar Spiegler 5th, and Glenn Williams behind them in 6th place. But looking at number 12, Rob Dean on this GSX 1100, you've ridden a few of them, Robert Holden. It amazes me that it's that competitive.
Yeah, it's actually quite surprising, Tony, that he's up there for as long as he has been. I thought the first time they'd come down the straight that everybody would, on the Formula 1 bikes anyhow, on the 500, would basically see Robbie off in a straight line, but he's obviously riding the bike very hard, and production bikes are quite often easier to get out of corners than a lot of the GP bikes, so I think Robbie's probably using the mid-range power that the 1100's got to get it out of the corners, which is keeping him ahead down the straights.
And the fact that Paul Lydon and Lothar Spiegler are having such trouble getting past them, that's, we assume, an indication of how hard it is to pass on here. Lydon just going past Rob Dean now.
Yeah, I think what will happen is as soon as the guys on the GP bike directly behind Robbie get their tyres warmed up, they will pass him. Like, it would be surprising actually to see him finish better than like 5th or 6th. I think once the race gets going properly, I think the guys will all slowly get past him. It'll just take a little while.
Glenn Williams has got up past Lothar Spiegler now. So Roger Freeth, Norris Farrow, Rob Dean still in 3rd place, but not for long, I suspect. Paul Lydon coming past him. There's Freeth and Farrow waiting for 3rd place now. It's in front of Rob Dean, Glenn Williams behind him. And we would also expect to have a dice between Rob Dean on the GSX 1100 and Glenn Williams on the GPZ 900. Freeth and Farrow starting to pull out quite a wide margin now. Paul Lydon, Lothar Spiegler, Robbie Dean, Glenn Williams, and Ken Steadman on the TZ 500 back there. There's Paul Lydon, Lothar Spiegler behind him, Rob Dean and Glenn Williams. 149, as we said, Ken Steadman on the Yamaha TZ 500.
I can see a good race developing between Lydon and Lothar Spiegler, both on fairly similar type of machinery.
I would also expect a good race between Rob Dean and Glenn Williams on the production bikes. Glenn Williams and Rob Dean have both done exceptionally well in the points overall, racing in Formula 1, and proving that on street circuits, the production bikes are not all that far behind. Paul Lydon and Lothar Spiegler. This is 3rd and 4th places. 5th, Robbie Dean. 6th, Glenn Williams. And 7th, Ken Steadman. There's Roger Freeth in the lead, getting that front wheel off the ground. Norris Farrow sticking with him. Paul Lydon starting to pull up some of the big gap that these two had pulled out in third place. But he's got quite a job in front of him to get anywhere near Norris Farrow. A lot of ground to make up. Roger Freeth and Norris Farrow. Roger Freeth already with second place in the series overall sewn up. So first and second place is already decided in the series. Norris Farrow hanging in there. Norris Farrow has got better as the day has gone on. Looking back now for third place, Paul Lydon. Lotte Spiegler in fifth. Paul Lydon, Lotte Spiegler, Clem Williams, Rob Dean, and Ken Stedman. Clem Williams having a little look down at the bike. That's where the racing is. The two in front, Roger Freeth and Norris Farrow, have cleared out and left them. That's first and second.
For Norris to win this race has been fantastic after a disastrous start to the series. Mechanical failure after mechanical failure, but to finish it on a high note with a win would be absolutely tremendous.
Rob Dean and Ken Stedman. 7th and 8th is Paul Lydon in 3rd. Lotte Spiegler 4th. Glenn Williams 5th. Rob Dean 6th. Paul Lydon and Lotte Spiegler not too far apart. Iden seems to have the measure of Spiegler, but Lotte Spiegler has certainly got faster as the day went on today. Perhaps because it's a relatively simple circuit to remember.
Well, it's good to see him actually put a slick tyre in the front instead of a rain tyre like he did at Wanganui. Nice to see him making an effort.
Robert, what is the difficulty of passing around this circuit?
The hard part, Tony, is that in a lot of cases, especially through the S's where you see them coming through now, is you can't see the exit of the corner. You can see the approach, but if there's a guy fairly close in front, you can't see the exit or the lines where you change direction. It's very hard to pass because you can't set yourself up to where you want to go. So you come up behind a guy and you can't see the exit where you're going to finish the manoeuvre off. So you can't actually see where you're going to end up, which is fairly scary in a few manoeuvres. Quite often you do a lot of the overtaking manoeuvres blind as to where you're actually going to end up in, at the finish.
So you get past somebody and all of a sudden there's a big curve approaching very quickly.
Yeah, there's a curve or hay bales, or you're just generally running out of road.
Roger Freeth really starting to wind it up now, still holding first place. Norris Farrow second. And looking back at the gap, quite a substantial one to Paul Lydon in third place. Norris Farrow. That's Peter Clifford a lap down. All of these riders a lap down. Paul Lydon, letter I. Lotte Spiegler behind him. Norris Farrow in second. Number 68, Pete Matheson on the Macintosh Suzuki, the one that Roger Freeth borrowed to use at Manfield. Roger Freeth with his own bike back and running very, very well indeed. Gerard Vogt waving Roger Freeth past on the outside. He went past on the inside. Well, the way Roger's going out there, Robert, would you like to have been racing against him?
Yes, I certainly would, Tony. It feels quite funny actually watching the guys go around here. I definitely would have liked to have been out there. I think, I don't know if actually the way Roger's going, whether or not I could have got away from him. He obviously looks like he's got the bit between his teeth and he's really putting in maximum effort. So it would have been quite interesting to see if I could actually beaten him. Roger's got faster and faster as the series has got going, and he's got his bikes operating better. I think he'd definitely be a problem to beat around here today for sure.
Exactly what I was thinking sitting here. Roger has got quicker as the day's gone on. He loves these circuits where there's a little bit of straight line stuff and a little bit wider open. It might have been quite a race.
Yeah, I think it would have been. I don't think I would have run away with it like I have with the previous legs. I think it would have definitely been fun.
Well, we've had an off there by the look of the yellow flags. Oh, it's Roger Freeth. We've lost our race leader, Roger Freeth. Well, it won't affect his second place overall in the series, but that's the end of the race for Roger Freeth. Norris Farrow takes over the lead.
Dr. Freeth would be extremely upset with that. By the looks of it, he's run wide on that off camber.
That's a very fast corner to get off, actually, Graham. I was going around there this morning, around about 75 to 80 miles an hour where you put the power on. Looked like that's exactly the same place where Roger's fallen off. He's gone right over the top of the bales and into the grassy area that was there, so he must have been really travelling at the time. Happily,
he's not hurt. Norris Farrow now on the Steve Roberts frame Suzuki 1100 takes over the lead. Paul Idden in second place. Lothar Spiegler, we assume, is still third. We'll have a look back down the field in just a moment. But the good news is that Roger Freeth is not hurt. He certainly looked as though he was going for it and getting the pace wound up out there in front, really with no one to race. Paul Idden and Lothar Spiegler, second and third. This will be the highest finish we've seen from any of the German competitors. Hans Kligerbiel, Lothar Spiegler and Gerard Vogt have all been notable by their absence from the front 5 or 6 places in these races, and at Wanganui they didn't appear to like the street circuits at all. So Paul Idden taking over second place from Roger Freeth having gone off. Lothar Spiegler, little L, in third place. And Glenn Williams, I gather, must be up to fourth place now. Have a look back down the field and see if we can find him. There's Idden in second place. There's Lothar Spiegler. And waiting now for letter B. The other 2 riders have been lapped. Norris Farrow's the leader, gone through. Paul Idden starting to catch him. Lothar Spiegler in third place. That's Spiegler having gone through. There's Idden in second place. We're just trying to check to see where Glenn Williams is on the circuit. Paul Idden still second, Lothar Spiegler third. And here is Glenn Williams coming around, still in fourth place. Remarkably good riding from Glenn Williams. He has been most consistent in the Formula One series, having won the Senior Production Series. The flag marshal waiting to bring out the white flag the next time round for Norris Farrow. Here is Norris Farrow. Well, perhaps it's not good in that he is winning through the bad luck of Roger Freeth, but Norris Farrow has had his share of bad luck in this series, and what a nice way to finish.
Well, he might be able to pay for those 36 valves now. He's in the prize money probably for the first time. It's been a very expensive operation, this series. He's put a lot of time and effort into it, and he's been away from his motorcycle shop for a long time.
That's the white flag for Norris Farrow on his last lap now. Paul Idden still second, Lothar Spiegler third, and Glenn Williams fourth. Well, it's a great way to finish for Norris Farrow. It would take an hour to relate to you all the bad luck stories that have been around Norris Farrow in the last couple of weeks, but to suffice it to say, at Wanganui, he was not the happiest man of the day. He had just about had enough of motorcycle racing and was ready to throw it away, I think. He got the act together, got the bike together, and has come back here at Gracefield, got on the pace very early on, has looked good right from the start, and now, with Robert Holden out with an unserviceable bike and Roger Freeth having crashed at the head of the field, Norris Farrow is going to win his first race of the series. There's the flag. Norris Farrow wins his first race of the series. Paul Idden catching him very quickly in second place, and Lothar Spiegler third.
I would say that would have to be a very, very happy Norris Farrow. See by his gesticulations there that he is absolutely happy.
I think probably the person who's not happy is wife Carolyn, who's endured all the suffering for the last couple of weeks and probably thought she had it done. She probably thought, now I can convince him to give up motorbike racing.
Well, no, I don't think so. Norris might take her out for dinner tonight. It's good to see Norris stop and check to make sure that Roger's okay. You'll probably get on the back and give him a ride round to the start-finish. Let the truck come around and pick up his probably bent and twisted Macintosh.
This could be the only time that Roger gets to go on a Roberts frame bike.
That's true.
I wonder if sitting on the back there, he'll be able to feel how differently they handle.
Oh, knowing Dr. Freeth, he'll probably want to adjust the damping rate or something halfway around.
Now, we're saying during the space of that race, Robert, it would have been nice to have you out there, and I'm sure you'd have enjoyed being out there and racing with Roger at that pace, but perhaps the pace was just a little too quick.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to get some lap times on Roger, because he was obviously trying very, very hard to go fairly fast, because he didn't pull away from Norris till towards the later stages, and then Roger having his little get-off. Would have been interesting to see just how fast they were going.
It's amazing in the number of crashes that we have had in this series. We have had very few serious injuries. I gather there has been one today. We have no details of it, and it would be improper for us to say anything about it. But of all the crashes we have had, most of them have been remarkably injury-free. The odd sore shoulder, the odd dented elbow. But when these two come back down, we'll be able to find out directly from Roger what did happen and how he got off the bike. Very obviously, he's uninjured, getting a lift back to the pits with Norris Farrow, who's had his first win of the series, and I'm sure will be a happy man. We should be able to talk to the two of them together when they get the helmets and stuff off. Roger Freeth is sitting up a little higher on the back of that bike than Norris Farrow, but it's probably a fairly accurate indication of how tall the man is. How he ever fits on a motorcycle, no one ever knows. Roger Freeth, when you see him standing up, doesn't look like he'd fit on a little bike, but he wraps himself around it.
Okay, Noel, we'll take off that section now.
Well, Robert Holden, it was bad luck that the bike went US, but congratulations on having won the series. Thanks for commentating with us, and is that the way you would like to have won it?
I would have liked to have been in the races right to the finish. We aimed on, competing in all 9 races. It would have been good to run the bike in all, in all 9 of them. It's a pity we didn't get to the last 3 races, but it was really good.
Okay, Robert, congratulations on having won the series, regardless of the way it finished for you. Thanks for helping us out in the commentary box, and hopefully we'll see you back next year.
Yes, thanks very much, Tony.
Looking at a replay now of the finishing stages for Norris Farrow. His happiest day of the series, I'm sure. We'll be able to get a word with him in just a moment. Getting the Steve Roberts framed Macintosh, no, we won't say that. The Steve Roberts framed Suzuki 1100. The Macintosh is what Roger Freeth was on.
It's a little hard to keep track of which frames are which, Tony.
It was hard enough when the bikes each had a single brand. Now the bike and the maker are 2 with each one, so it gets very complicated. We have something like 300 bikes and riders to remember here in a day. It is definitely a Steve Roberts framed, as made by Steve Roberts, the man himself that we spoke to earlier. You may have seen him. And the same bike as Robert Holden was riding in the series, with 1135 Suzuki motors modified to make up this Formula One. It seems to have been the successful bike, the one to ride, although Roger Freeth has finished second overall in the series on a Ken Macintosh frame Suzuki. Very similar engine, but totally different frame.
Well, Roger seemed to start the race series and finish on the same note, laying in a heap on the side of the road, unfortunately, but that's racing, and I think overall Roger's probably enjoyed the series and is looking forward to next year's series.
So that's confirmation of Formula One Leg 3, the last one, which didn't affect first or second placings overall. Norris Farrow of New Zealand on the Roberts Suzuki, Paul Eden from England on the Suzuki RGB, and Lothar Spiegler on the Suzuki RGB from West Germany. Let's just have a look at the man who has won the series, who wasn't running in that last race, obviously was in here commentating with us, Robert Holden, the overall series winner. Right from the outset of the series at Mansfield, Robert Holden from Wellington, sponsored by Wellington Motorcycles, has certainly been the man to beat. On the ex-Dave Hiscock Formula One Steve Roberts frame Suzuki.
Well, that's it. That's it from Gracefield today. But before we go, we'll cross over to Tony Palmer in the pits there, who's hopefully got Norris Farrow, Roger Freeth, and a quick talk with Robert Holden. Over to you, Tony.
Thanks, Graham. Norris, in the last race there, it looked as though you had a little bit of a problem with some smoke coming out of the bike. You weren't going to have another horrible one, were you?
I think, Tony, for 2 laps longer, I think we would have. It's not a very well motor. It'll blow for sure. But, luckily, it was only 15 laps.
I noticed that Paul Eden in the latter stages of the race was catching you quite quickly along with Lotta Spiegler. Was that because you were getting off the pace a bit?
Yeah, like what I did, I dropped it down. Like we rev these things to sort of 9,500 revs. I was running, I think, 7,000 revs the last sort of 4 or 5 laps, just to try and sort of preserve it. As soon as I saw Roger go down, well, we knew we were there as long as it'd keep going.
Nice way to finish the series. I can't think of anybody in recent years who's had more bad luck than you've had in this series. Nice way to finish.
Oh, I think so, yeah. It's words, fail me for that one.
I thought your wife might have talked you out of motorcycle racing at Wanganui. You were looking so despondent then. Are you back in with a vengeance?
Yeah, I think she's going to lend me some more money and buy another motor, I think.
OK, Norris, congratulations. Well done.
Thanks very much.
Man, we should talk to here, Roger Freeth. What did actually happen, Roger?
Well, I got a bit of a break on Norris, and we were lapping some riders. There was, I don't know who it was, but going onto the back straight, the fast left-hander, he drifted a little bit wide. I was going to go down the inside of him. I knew Norris was fairly close, and I couldn't sort of muck around lapping him, but I decided to go around the outside, and he drifted a bit wide, and so I obviously had speed on him and laid the bike down a fraction more than I normally would have. And the crankcase dug in and lifted the front wheel off the ground and just started to slide the front, clipped a curb, and that was the end of that.
So you didn't get hurt at all?
No. Leather stood up to it quite well.
How much damage have you done to the bike?
I think it's broken a fork yoke and dented the tank a little bit. Actually, it's surprisingly, it's more than at Pukekohe. The curb, I think, is the thing that does the damage around the street circuits.
There's a lot of people going to say now, sitting at home, that you've finished the series the way you started it, sitting on your bum. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's one of those things that, in motor racing, you're just so close to the ragged edge all the time. It's just that fine line is a very, very fine line. And sometimes when you're lapping people, they're a little bit unpredictable. It's a bit difficult trying to know where to go.
You still managed to hang on to your second place in the series. You knew that wasn't threatened. Were you just going for it and looking for a lap record?
No, the pace was fairly slow in the opening laps. I had a feeling that Norris may have been having a little bit of a problem with his bike, but I just wanted to try and get a buffer in those middle laps so that if I had a problem towards the end, it wasn't going to lose me the win for the race.
Congratulations on second place, Roger. Sorry it finished the way it did, but I'm sure we'll see you back again. You've done it before.
Yeah, we'll be back again next year.
OK, let's talk to the man who has won the series overall, Robert Holden. Well done.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
I'm sure you would have liked to have been racing in that last one. You were sitting in the commentary box with us there saying Roger's going very fast and looking envious.
Yeah, well, actually, Roger was going a lot faster than I thought he would. Like when we started watching on the screen, he was going faster and faster and faster. And as I was just saying, he's going exceptionally well. I would like to be out there. Next time we looked, he'd gone. I couldn't figure out where he'd gone. But in Roger's normal style, he doesn't just fall off. Like he always does it really, really well. Possibly a little bit like I do. But it was good to see Norris get a win because probably Norris has put more effort into the series than anybody else. Had a lot of engine blow-ups, a lot of just silly little problems with oil leaks and things going wrong, and it was good to see him win the last one of the series. It was really good.
You've won this series by a substantial margin, and a lot of people are asking now, are you going to stay in New Zealand? Do you have ambitions to go overseas? I know you've thought about it. What's the current thinking?
Well, at the beginning of this the series, as I talked to you at Pukekohe, I said that I thought you had to be 19 to do it. I no longer feel like that. I don't really want to leave New Zealand. I'm going to stay here and do the rest of the championship rounds and try and win a few of the New Zealand titles. But I do want to go overseas. I do want to try and put something together and go over and see just how far I can go. Like the more I ride here, the more enjoyable it becomes, and the more I want to go overseas and see if I can actually make something of it.
When you do go overseas, are you contemplating going to have a go at racing bikes, or what you really grew up with, production-type bikes and Formula One bikes?
Well, it depends what kind of a deal I can get. I would like to get into true racing bikes if I can. Like, I spend a lot of time with production bikes, and I still think in New Zealand production bikes are the way for anybody to go. It's the cheapest type of racing and it's the most competitive. It's very unusual that you get a really competitive Formula One race, but like in 600 production, 250 production and senior production, you always get lots of real competitive racing. I think that's where I've learnt to ride like I do now. But I think I've got to the point where I would like to try some really proper racing, like with Formula One or 500 GPs or something that I can have a real good go at and see how I get on.
Whatever you choose, Robert, congratulations on the series, and we wish you well overseas if you do go overseas.
Thanks very much, Tony.
Robert Holden, the series winner. Let's go back now to Peter Williams.